Today I'm going to talk about the significance of play. We understand now that play is important to children, that play is something that maybe keeps us healthy on some level. But looking within and considering things from a perspective of consciousness or spirituality, play is seen even more fundamentally. There's something more significant about play than we even tend to understand. We see, as we study different species, that play is a feature of more intelligent species. In our normal day-to-day functioning right now on the planet, when we are constantly looking to kind of prosper materially, maybe progress materially, accumulate more, which tends to be the general thing going on right now on our planet. Play looks kind of like a sideshow, right? Play is not going to help you, not directly at least, play is not going to help you get more, win more, earn more, however you want to say it. And we understand that play is, good for your health and all that sort of thing. So we could indirectly argue that, mindfulness and play and all these kinds of seemingly meaningless things, do make you more focused ultimately, and so increase your productivity. That's a little bit convoluted, I'm going to say, because there's something much more fundamental in play, which is that all of this activity, all of existence, all of this evolution of species and greater intelligence is moving towards a self-awakening of consciousness. This is not something that I can prove empirically or that anybody's going to find empirically. It's not fundamentally a scientific statement. It's a statement that comes from looking within. And you could call it mystical, but only in the sense that you're going to discover it looking within and observing inner reality on a deeper and deeper level. As you do look within and experience yourself more and more deeply, you get through the particularities of the self. You start to see through ideology, you start to see through identity, you start to see through a personal experience of the self and get down into something more fundamental. And you start to discover a sort of universal self-nature, something that's very vibrant, alive, joyous, playful. And then you start to see the reason that more intelligent animals are playing is because play is a direct self-experience. It's a direct self-awakening. It has no end other than self-experience. And that's what we're here for. So all of these forms, all of these life forms, any kind of form, all of this materiality is just being created by this universal intelligence. It's a very broad and perhaps abstract statement if you're not connected to this inwardly on some level, if you don't have some intuition around this. But all of these forms are being manifested, created by this universal intelligence, by this bedrock of being that we are, in order to reflect more deeply on themselves. And from a universal perspective, in order for the universe, for the totality, these are very, again, abstract and effectively meaningless words. You kind of have to look to the content of the words, like, what is the universe? What is the totality? That everything that is creating form, is creating life forms, etc., in order to reflect more deeply on itself, in order to self-awaken to its own nature. And that self-awakening is the experience of joy. And play is a direct self-experience of the universe, which is why it's happening in more evolved, you could say, more intelligent species, because it is fundamental to intelligence, to self-experience, to self-reflect. So from a linear perspective, play is a sideshow, it's secondary. But from an atemporal perspective, from an eternal perspective of a universal essence that simply is, that's not trying to get anywhere, it's just moving towards its own or into its own self-realization. Play is fundamental. It's not a secondary action. It's a direct self-realization. And all of these activities that seem pointless from a mental survival perspective, play, love, generosity, kind of like vulnerability in general. It's not going to get you very far on a survival level usually, but it's a more significant self-awakening of what you are. And that's really why we're here. We're here to awaken to ourselves as the essence of the universe beyond any of the forms that it has created. So fundamentally, we are not just human. We're something much deeper. We're the whole, there are no words for this, but we're like the whole totality. We're the whole universe that is temporarily manifest as human. And we have the capacity for human experience, but we also have the capacity to look beyond human experience into a deeper self-nature. And play is one of the most direct ways into that self-discovery. Anything that doesn't have a point, that doesn't have an end, that isn't going to get you anywhere, but just exists as an end in itself, is usually a more direct self-experience. It's actually kind of like more significant than the things that seem to get you somewhere. Because those are happening in time. Those are happening linearly. But something that doesn't have an end is pointing to something atemporal, something eternal. So awakening to something eternal doesn't have a temporal end. There's no end in sight as you look into the deepest self. So think about this reframing of reality in a way. What is it to put things like play and generosity and love, vulnerability, everything that is irrational to the mind, things that cockroaches wouldn't do? That's a good general way to describe it. Things that cockroaches wouldn't do, right? Cockroaches are like amazing survival machines. Cockroaches wouldn't think either, but if they could think, they would be aiming for survival all the time. That's how we can see, a lot of insects. It's like they're really good survival machines. And we as humans, in many ways, if we look at our collective state right now, are like really good survival machines. Ultimately, that's self-defeating because in our constant push to survive, we're really messing everything up and kind of bringing about our own self-destruction. But there's another dimension in us that's deeper than that impulse to survive, that sort of cockroach impulse, which is this self-awakening. As a more intelligent, more self-aware species, we have the capacity to not just survive and prosper on a material or on a linear level, but also self-awaken on an eternal level. To discover ourselves as something beyond our humanity. And that's why we're here. And play is a really direct and joyous self-discovery. This is maybe a philosophical description of play. Perhaps not so playful in itself. I hope it is a little bit. But maybe another thing to consider as you think about play, and that it's more significant than it seems. That actually these things that you're called to do, that you want to do, are as valuable as you feel they are intuitively. Even if your mind is saying, no, I should get back to work. I have to get somewhere. There's a reason that you want to play. Something within you is looking to self-realize. And that's actually ultimately much more significant than anything that you're going to tell yourself that you should be doing. So trust yourself, play, have fun. self-awake.